fantasy football with the true Minnesotan, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, coming to you live from Minnesota.
That's right. Oh, I even like you. You sound like you're from Minnesota.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm from the city that y'all know the movie Fargo.
Yeah,
the Coen brothers. That movie's actually, it ain't set in Fargo. It's set in Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota.
well, that's dope.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, you're out there looking for the snow globe.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, out there in the snow for sure.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. What's going on, Thor? Thanks for joining us.
It's about
Yeah,
that time.
appreciate it. Yeah, lots of stuff going on. We got camp going. We're moving in towards opening kickoff here. We got the last couple preseason games, so it's a good time of the year.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time of the year. We like to do Fantasy Fridays. We bring in guests every Friday to talk fantasy football. I think it's great, especially with drafts coming up. And let's start there. You do have your own draft guide. You have your own draft books. First of all, where can people find your stuff so we get them looking at it right now?
You can find all of our stuff at fantasylife.com. We got all kinds of cool tools there. And then different shows we do. We offer guillotine leagues, which is sort of the baby of one of my good friends, Paul Charchian here in town. But I do a show with him every week called the Chop Show that is specific to guillotine leagues. But I'm probably like you guys. I love playing every fantasy format, but guillotine leagues is a really cool new format to play. But we play them all.
Okay. I think I would like to try a guillotine. Kyle was talking about it. It's the Robespierre of no.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. It's like you have 17 weeks in the regular season, so it's like an 18-team league, and all you have to do is not finish last in a given week. But if you finish last, so the first week with the 18 teams, if you finish with the lowest point total, your roster gets chopped. You're out of the league. And then so your roster then goes into waivers. And this is one of the cool aspects of it. Every week, it's like a mini.
Oh, no. Did we lose him?
Auction. Drafts in our fantasy leagues or whatever. Guillotine leagues, basically, you have a mini auction every single week on the waiver wire with these chopped rosters.
That sounds fun. I've never heard of that till now.
That's amazing.
Cool.
No, yeah.
Give it a shot.
Oh, that's going to be tough being the guy too. Week 1, you're done. The team works. Like, just imagine hearing from all your boys all season long.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. And what do you do buy-in wise? Because that seems like it could be a pretty good poll.
Oh, I mean, like, however, just like any other league, however much, people want to play for. But I like the aspect of it where if your team stinks, you're out of it right away, because the worst part about fantasy is when you have like your team's like 4-8 and you have no chance to make the playoffs, but then you still have to check in. It's for the other guys setting your lineups and stuff like that. In guillotine leagues, if your team stinks, you are free to move on with your life. Your team's just done. So it's actually that part of it's kind of neat.
That was a lot better.
That's amazing. Let's get into fantasy football this year. Before we get into specific teams or players or anything like that, I always like to kind of like when we're getting prepped for a draft, what does this season look like for you? Is it in a standard league? Are you chasing a couple of wide receivers up high? Are you a get in on the running backs early because they're not going to be there? Like, what sort of draft strategy do you go into, with everyone out there about to start their drafts?
I'm gonna stay true to my board guy, and it all matters with the context of sort of the drafting environment that you're in. But I have to draft with so many drafts where you're against strangers where you don't really know their drafting tendency, so you have to sort of pick that up as you go. But in standard leagues, my lean decidedly, of course, towards running back or wide receiver early, and I probably skew a little bit more towards running backs than some other people in my industry up higher, leveraging that just a little bit. But the top guy on my board, I'm going to go with. And then you see a couple rounds into the thing, you start seeing some drafting tendencies. I'm in a very deep college fantasy football league draft right now, and I'm drafting against a bunch of experts. And those guys in the first couple rounds of this draft, they were all taking the running backs early. So I kind of swerved the other way. I don't know if you guys know college football at all, but I took the Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith in the first round, and then Oklahoma's quarterback and wide receiver John Mateer and Deion Burks in the second and the third round. All these guys were making fun of me of, you don't have a running back yet. I'll let you guys overdraft the running backs in procession and do your little running back run. And then I'll come back and pick my sort of my sleeper guys of the next tier when you guys are all doing your run of quarterbacks and wide receivers. So it just an example, but that's sort of how I draft in every league.
Last season, Christian McCaffrey probably ended a lot of teams' years before it got started, taking him with the number 1 pick. Is there anyone this year where it's like, maybe stay away from him if you got the number 1 pick this season? It doesn't have to be necessarily because of injury or anything like that. It could be schemes, new teams, or whatever. Anyone like that for you?
Yeah. I mean, one guy that we would have guy to this point. Yeah, in my career, the best fantasy call I've ever had was Puka Nacua before his rookie year, telling everyone, go out and sign this guy because he's going to get used and he's good. Puka Nacua is the guy, though, that I think I would avoid in first rounds this year. There's a weird stink on this Rams team already. The Matthew Stafford health thing, they have that van with the cryo in it or whatever, that he goes out in front of the stadium and he's sitting in there for a couple hours. The Rams acquired a second first-round pick, as you guys know, this past April. My primary job is NFL draft analyst. And it's interesting the decisions that teams make when you put them on the spot and everyone is sort of sitting around the same poker table. The Rams traded out of the first round with the Atlanta Falcons to pick up a second first-round pick for this coming April. And as you guys know, they were very close to a divorce with Matthew Stafford. In advance of that, there was a couple of different teams that were coming after Stafford hard through trade. The Raiders initially and the Giants were two of the primary ones. But I think this is the last year you're going to see Matthew Stafford with the Rams. I think that trade for the extra first-round pick was telegraphing to people, we will be selecting our quarterback of the future in this coming April. And I think if the season, here's my whole point with this, I think if the season starts to go a little bit wayward, there is no incentive for the Rams, if you start to get out of the playoff race, to continue to trot Matthew Stafford out there, especially if he's not 100%. You could see him get shut down early, and you could see the team maybe start jockeying for draft positioning if the start of the season doesn't go well. So I think all of these factors have to be baked in when you consider Puka Nacua. He's a top 10 pick in fantasy drafts. I would not take him in the top 10.
Gotcha.
Interesting. You are a guy who you talked about the draft, right?
Yeah.
The San Francisco 49ers play the Las Vegas Raiders this weekend. We're going to get our second look at Ashton Jeanty. Where are you at with him, especially if you're in a keeper league and you're looking at the long term? Is this a guy that you're taking top 5, or are you taking him top 10? Like where do you put him in sort of your hierarchy with a keeper league?
In a keeper league, I'd take him first overall. I think Ashton Jeanty is absolutely amazing. One of the hardest guys to tackle that I've ever seen in college. He can handle heavy usage. And I think the thing that people miss with Ashton Jeanty is he's also a really good receiver. And I think the reason that they miss this is because last year, Boise State, the offseason heading into the season, Jeanty very briefly considered transferring to a Power 4 program. He never entered the portal, but he was listening to some of the things that were being tossed at him. And Boise State, in their bid to keep Ashton Jeanty, they not only got help from a couple boosters and a local car dealership, but they also made Ashton Jeanty an argument, a presentation of, we are going to attempt to get you to New York and to win the Heisman this year. And one of the sort of offensive usage things that they did to do that was they took away his touches as a receiver and funneled them all to his touches as a running back. Because the whole purpose was, let's make a run at Barry Sanders' single season rushing record. And Jeanty came close. And obviously he also came close to winning the Heisman. However, the year before that, so Jeanty, his second to last season, his true sophomore season at Boise State, he was one of the best receiving backs that we've seen in college football the last several years. Ashton Jeanty in high school, you go back to Frisco High. Ashton Jeanty went to high school in Texas after his family moved from Italy, which is one of the reasons his father was in the military. It's one of the reasons why he had gone under the radar as a recruit. But at Frisco High, as a junior in high school, Ashton Jeanty was an all-state slot receiver. He took over. And by the way, the guy who played that position before him was Marvin Mims. So he took over for Marvin Mims as the slot receiver of this team, was awesome. And then the last season, the reason that they put him at slot receiver was Frisco High at the time. Their running back also got a D1 scholarship. It was this kid named Jaden Nixon. So then when Jaden Nixon left, he signed with Oklahoma State. Genty, his senior year, became the bell cow running back for Frisco High. But that's sort of the reason why he went under the radar as a recruit. But the whole point I want to make is this kid is a really, really good receiver. So you're going to see him get pounded with targets in the passing game as well. Chip Kelly, think back to last year when they won the national title at Ohio State, when Chip Kelly was running that offense, the way that they used Travion Henderson. Genty is not the exact same kind of a receiver or player as Henderson. Henderson is more explosive, but Genty, you could argue that he's more skilled, and he's very efficient, has good ball skills as far as receiver goes, and it goes without saying that he's really good after the catch as well. So Ashton Genty, thumbs up for me.
We'll go to the other side and who they're playing, the 49ers, tomorrow. How do you feel about Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, like just that group on offense? I feel like Christian McCaffrey is always some people look at, but like, how do you feel about those guys?
Yeah, Purdy, I would see him as like a low-end QB1 or high-end QB2. You're talking like a 12-team standard league. And as you guys know, in the court of public opinion, Brock Purdy sometimes gets disrespected. So sometimes you can get him over these years, you can get him at a little bit of a discount. There's also some questions about, as you guys know, some of the skill guys having left the 49ers. How are you going to retool that thing? So I think that's a guy you can get on a little bit of a discount. Jennings, I like Jennings' game enough, but I would be fading him at the price tag that he's at. Him and Pearsall, I'm trying to pull up some of the consensus rankings. Him and Pearsall are pretty close to each other. You look at the consensus rankings, and I'm curious your guys' take. I like Pearsall more. I think Pearsall is going to be the very clear wide receiver one for the 49ers this year. I think you started to see it at the end of last year. You guys know his first off season in the NFL had the extremely unfortunate incident of getting shot, right? And he had to come back from that, and he wasn't full strength until later on in the season. At the end of the season, down the stretch there, they were looking to Ricky Pearsall all the time. He was getting pounded with targets those last couple of weeks when he had gotten to full strength. I really, really like Ricky Pearsall in fantasy this year. He's one of my favorite sleepers. So he'd be the guy that I would take over Juwan Jennings. That not everyone, certainly that's not everyone's opinion, but that's where I'm at with it.
Oh yeah, he's not wrong. He was getting a lot of targets at the end of last year. I think his only issue is that whether or not he could stay on the field.
Yeah.
If he's dealing with his shoulder or if he's dealing with just whatever it is, yeah, I think that's his only issue. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. You're listening to the Insiders here on ESPN 1320. We're joined by Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Life. Awesome having a different voice talking fantasy football this week. You can find him at Thor KU on X. And also you can go to fantasylife.com and look at all of their content there. Thor, you're from Minnesota. You've got a San Francisco running back in your backfield now in Jordan Mason. Where are you at with Mason? Because, they do have Aaron Jones still. You got a rookie quarterback, a rookie second-year quarterback, but sort of a lot of moving pieces there in Minnesota. But it seems like you're pretty high on Jordan Mason still.
Very, very high on Jordan Mason. Yeah, Jordan Mason, we were just talking about a sleeper in Pearsall that I think is a little bit undervalued. Jordan Mason, is, in my opinion, is one of the biggest fantasy sleepers in the entire NFL heading into this season. You look at the consensus rankings and the ADP rankings of fantasy to this point, Aaron Jones has been going way ahead of Jordan Mason in fantasy drafts. In my opinion, they should be going right next to each other. Right, like the Vikings, right when they acquired Jordan Mason, they told not only the media, but they told Aaron Jones, this is going to be a split backfield. And Aaron Jones is cool with it. Aaron Jones I brought up Paul Charchian earlier. I think my buddy Paul Charchian that does guillotine leagues, and I do work with him at Fantasy Life. Aaron Jones was telling him at the Vikings draft party in April, they're bringing in Jordan and we're divvying up the touches. And this makes sense for the team because then with Aaron Jones, you can leverage what he's best at, which is being the receiving back and then some of the stuff outside the tackles. Aaron Jones, very, very skilled player, but not as good between the tackles, especially in short yardage situations. He was, I believe, the NFL's worst running back running inside the 10-yard line last season. They brought in Jordan Mason to fix that. They also fixed their interior offensive line, which has been one of the NFL's worst the last several years, and it will be one of the NFL's best this coming season. You sign 2 high money guys from the Colts in Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, and then you use your first round pick on Donovan Jackson. Your interior offensive line way better. And Jordan Mason, as you guys know, really, really good player. Last year, he was 3rd in the NFL in yards after contact, behind only Derrick Henry and Devin Achane. And he's being brought in again to address the thing very specifically that the Vikings had as a weakness last year, that short yardage rushing thing. Expect him to get just as many touches as Aaron Jones does this year, and maybe even more if Aaron Jones gets nicked up again. I think one interesting note from camp to convey to people is the Vikings have been working a lot with Jordan Mason on catching the ball. That's something that in his college career we didn't see a ton. And with the 49ers, they didn't need him to catch the ball. With all the other pass catchers that they had, the Vikings have been laboring to work on, with Jordan Mason, the dump offs, screens, and swings. And if you can get him comfortable with those behind the line of scrimmage, and we'll get an envoy in front of you, try to get you out on the perimeter into space where you can just start rumbling downfield with a couple of blockers in front of you. Donovan Jackson's already shown that he's really good going downfield and picking people off, moving targets. That will allow Jordan Mason, the offense, not to change much if Aaron Jones gets hurt, because then we know that Jordan Mason can assume some of the receiving stuff as well. But yeah, super duper high on Jordan Mason this year in fantasy.
What's been the talk around JJ McCarthy at camp?
People are pretty bullish on JJ McCarthy. There's a different narrative about him locally than you sometimes see with national folks that are talking about him. But yeah, positive reviews. Yesterday, the Vikings had the Patriots in town they're hosting them all week, really, because tomorrow they play them in the preseason. But they've had multiple days now of live practices with the Patriots, full speed practices. And yesterday was arguably McCarthy's best practice this summer. He was just lighting it up. Rave reviews for McCarthy's performance against a real live defense. But McCarthy, big time arm. He had the second fastest max velo throw in NFL Combine history, 61 miles per hour, 62 is the record. Great athlete, runs in the high 4.4s, 4.48 was a run that he had at Michigan his last off season, heading into his last year. And then he had the 6th fastest 3-cone at the 2024 NFL Combine, irregardless of position. Not the 6th fastest of the quarterback, 6th fastest of all the positions. Very, very agile athlete. It's difficult to pen him in the pocket. It's difficult to sack him. He extends the plays really well, and he keeps the throwing mechanics with him on the move. So you can get the ball out real quick to any sector of the field once he sees it. That's going to be a cool aspect of his game, I think, for people to pay attention to, when we see him this coming year. The other thing I think you'll see that's a new wrinkle to the offense, you're going to see McCarthy's legs used a lot on design concepts, I think in particular around the goal line. We were just talking about your boy Jordan Mason. That I was down at the night practice that the Vikings hosted last Monday. You saw around the goal line what they were doing. It's a lot of McCarthy and shotgun with Mason next to him. And they do a lot of things of, they'll give him the ball up the middle, but then the next time they give the defense the look, they'll fake that. They'll have McCarthy pull it. Now he's going around, he's bootlegging around to the right side, and they have different routes out there for him, or he can tuck and run. You're going to see McCarthy's legs used quite a bit, and including around the goal line. I think he's going to steal some touchdowns as well with his legs.
Awesome. Thor, thanks for joining us. This is Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Life. Again, super excited to see where this whole thing goes this year, especially with your Minnesota Vikings. So thanks for jumping on here with the Insiders on ESPN 1320 with us.
Thanks so much for having me, boys.
All right, see you, Thor.
There we go. Like really interesting.